Welcome to another River Radio Sports Central podcast powered by our friends at NovaCare Rehabilitation. Alongside Matt Varney from 103.5 ESPN, I am Darren Kennard. And this week, Matty, the weather has been one of the biggest stories, if not the story, as we record here on Friday morning, and it continues to rain.
Yeah, I mean, it's knocked almost everything out. There's not been a whole lot going on. And, in fact, I mean, Wednesday, Thursday, there really was nothing at all, and it's looking like that's going to be the case here today as well. As I was just outside and the rain was pouring, and maybe there'll be some school somewhere around that has some good drainage system but I'm not too sure about that. So a short week for a lot of teams, but you know what, we were talking about it last week about just the fact that there's been a lot of games for a lot of these softball and baseball teams specifically. It's a good time to get some rest for these teams as they went through a whirlwind start of the season.
Yeah, and last weekend the weather, the wet weather started moving in on Saturday, wiped out the second half or most of the second half of the border wars between the Illinois and Kentucky softball teams, and so most of Saturday afternoon schedule got wiped out, and had a couple of dry days early in the week, and then this deluge has come, and again, it wasn't. It's not been a surprise. It's been in the forecast for a full week of, hey, we might have we might have historic amounts of rain, and and then earlier in the week we had severe weather move through, and golly, when you've got tornadoes on the ground and doing damage, and you're not going to come on here and complain about the fact there are no games being played.
Right. And, I mean, luckily, from everything that I've seen, at least, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but it doesn't look like really anyone got hurt due to all that weather. I mean, there was some scary moments there, but it looks like it kind of avoided most of civilization, luckily.
Right. And, and now the thing is that looking ahead, this is not going to quit until, either late Saturday or Sunday. Even with good drainage, I'm not sure those with grass fields will be able to play before midweek. I could be wrong, but it's gonna put an emphasis on those facilities that do have turf and do have the ability to play some games. Now we're not into the postseason, so there's not like that that urgency to get the games in. But at the same point, you don't want to sit out for 7 to 10 days and not have any games. And it's too wet to play. It's too wet to practice outside, and you can only do so much in the cage and the gym. So I think that, over the course of next week, I think we're going to see a lot of juggling and games moved around.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I mean, I've talked with several softball and baseball coaches around the area about, how this is a basketball area without a doubt, but the hidden gem is definitely what goes on the diamond in the spring. And so there's a lot of good talent around here, and the coaches know what to do, especially during this time frame. But like you said, you can only do so much in the gym. And so it's going to be a question, I think, right now of, how long do you have to wait it out, and what can you do to make sure that these kids stay sharp?
And if I just have one request that I can put in is that we can get a field ready by Wednesday, because Wednesday Carterville's at Anna Jonesboro softball. So you have the defending state champs who at this point are 6-2 and playing really well, and you've got AJ who is 10-0. And I posted the other day on our Facebook page, or our social media sites, that they're 10-0. They've scored 161 runs in those 10 games. And so simple math, because they played 10 games, you just move the decimal one to the left. So they're averaging 16 runs a game.
It's darn good.
And they have 74 extra base hits, including 24 home runs. And it's through 10 games. I mean, these are numbers that are crazy. And this isn't necessarily just batting practice or whatever. I mean, these are actual games that they're posting these numbers.
Yeah. Well, and the other crazy part about it is we're paying attention to the offense and everything. But I saw a post a few days ago, and I was reminded that Ruby Yates is on the mound for them. She's in the circle, and I was like, oh yeah, she's a pretty darn good pitcher. I mean, they are maybe the most complete team in Southern Illinois right now.
Right. And that's the thing, is that, their sticks up and down the lineup are fantastic. They again, 74 extra base hits, and that's just an enormous number.
Yeah.
You know, and then you've got Kansas Craig, who's sitting at 9 home runs. You know, and just again up and down the lineup that you're getting that production, and so it's going to be interesting to me to see Wednesday when they play, because obviously you have Cadence Phillips at Carterville, who is spectacular in the circle. You got Ruby Yates, who's spectacular in the circle, but is there a chess piece involved here that, hey, we're not going to throw our number ones here,
perhaps,
because this is a potential sectional final matchup.
Perhaps,
I don't know,
but it might also be an opportunity for both of those coaches, because those, as we said, Anna Jonesboro, fantastic offense. Carterville's got a pretty darn good offense as well. Yes. It might be one of those type of things where the coaches sit there and say, well, this is a great chance for us to see what you do against a team like that. Not that they haven't played caliber teams like Carterville, especially. They've played some fantastic opponents, and AJ's been doing their best to try to schedule those type of teams as well. But you look at that and you say, yeah, maybe we don't throw the number ones out there, but at the same time, it's an opportunity to say, hey, how's the number one going to react to a situation like this? How are they going to react when it's the third or fourth inning and they've given up 7 runs potentially? They're both very good that I wouldn't expect that, but the possibility's there, and the coach might want to see, because you may only get 1 or 2 other opportunities before the postseason comes, when it could very well happen in a sectional final.
Right, and both of those two are so experienced, and I think that both coaches, they know what they're going to get.
Yeah.
Now, they don't know what they're going to get against the other.
Exactly.
But it's just one of those things that it's going to be interesting to me, and then just another reason why I want to see that game, because, look, I'm not saying that the number 2 or 3 pitchers for either of those clubs are, they're good too.
Yeah.
They're not the level of
right.
Because Taryn Ford's is hurt at this point.
Yeah.
And so Carterville had that 1 and 1A situation with those 2 pitchers last year. Don't necessarily have that this year, but again, it's not like they're just they're not throwing chopped liver out there,
right?
But again, if it's not the number ones, we could end up seeing a 16-12 type game,
which would be great.
Yeah, I mean it's a highlight waiting to happen.
Yeah, and I mean you could see that type of score going to extra innings too with that type of team. It wouldn't be something that ends in the 3rd or 4th inning. It'd be something that.
And if they end up playing at Jonesboro, I don't believe they have lights. So they might need to. We might need to start this at 3:30.
But I mean, but you mentioned the secret chess piece to it. But the other part of it is that we've already talked about is that you might be waiting until Wednesday to play, and so that factors in also to just the fact of, do we want to throw out our number ones out there? Do we want to give our number 2s or 3s an opportunity, because they've been waiting probably longer also?
And it may be, again, this is the strategery stuff that's fascinating to me, is maybe you pitch your starters one time through the order and only give them one look, just so, again, if you haven't played since last Tuesday or Wednesday, you need to get everybody a little bit of work, and it's it's now a non-conference game,
right?
So it's not like there's some extra emphasis on it. It's a non-conference game, and again, we're just hoping it gets played.
Right, exactly. Well, and the other part of it also that I just another piece after another piece keep going into my head, but the 2s and 3s for Carterville right now specifically are basically those aces from the junior high team that won state that have been so dominant the past few years. I mean, this might be one of those games where the coaches sit there and say, let's give them an opportunity. This is perfect time for iron to sharp iron type of deal. And if they get banged around, better for it to happen in the freshman year than for it to happen in sophomore or junior year. So, there's a lot of different things that are going to go into that decision. And like you said, we're just hoping it gets played.
The interesting thing, we talk about it a lot, throughout the seasons, is just like, oh gosh, it goes so quick.
Yep.
And one of those signs is the IHSA released the postseason, assignments.
Yep.
The pairings and stuff are not out yet, but we'll just kind of take a quick glance. In baseball, Altamont and Cobden are the sectional hosts. At Cobden, subsectional A regional hosts are Pope County and Goreville. Subsectional B hosts are Alvarado and Waltonville Sesser-Valier. On the other side, at Altamont, hosts are Dietrich and South Central. In the subsectional B, it's Oka Valley and Pawnee. So that's 1A baseball. And when you look at 2A baseball, and again, this is the final year that 1A and 2A, 3A and 4A are separate weekends.
Yeah.
So when you get into the 2A aspect of it, you've got DuQuoin and T-Town are both hosting the sectionals. Regionals going to DuQuoin include Fairfield and Massac County. Boy, could you get further apart there
Right.
for those two options. And then the other subsectional has Carterville and Sparta. And then going to T-Town, you have Newton and Paris, and then Bree Central and Roxana. And so both 1A and 2A will end up at the Carbondale SIU Super Sectional, which has been the case for many years.
Yeah.
SIU has been the host for both of those. In 3A, you're looking at Triad and Lincoln are your sectional hosts. Going into the Triad sectional, you have regionals at Civic Memorial and Mascoutah. You also have Centralia, and it doesn't look like they have a second one marked yet in subsectional B. So, that's what the red note is. There,
Yeah.
when it says we are still seeking a subsectional host. So, again, there's that question mark there, and 3A will go to the Milliken Super Sectional. So,
Also a great place to be at.
yeah, I mean, it's, again, 1A, 2A going to Southern, and then 3A is going to Milliken. That's been the case for many years.
Yeah.
And so, but again, I think that interesting to me is clearly you've got Southern, but DuQuoin hosting the sectional.
Yeah, that's big.
Turf is, but it's also kind of a unique field in that it's got the short porch and right.
Yep.
Mammoth left, center, and center, and so those type of places are always interesting to see how it ends up playing out. But again, you're looking at quality teams in that, and again in 1A, Cobden is a place that is hosted before.
Yep.
So
Goreville too.
Yeah, and in Goreville hosting a regional, that's zero surprise.
Yeah, exactly.
Zero surprise there. And
exactly.
I suspect that when we get into the softball here, that lo and behold, Goreville is hosting softball as
There
well.
you go.
Again, a great facility, and it just makes a ton of sense. So the difference this year in the softball, 1A and 2A, the Supers have been at Johnston City for years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This year they're at Southern too.
How about it?
And so now SIU
That'll be
is
fun.
hosting both the 1A and 2A baseball and softball Supers. And so now I just have to use my powers of, maybe influencing thought process here is don't schedule them at the same time.
Right.
Please, please, please. Matt Shackleton, I'm talking to you. Please don't schedule them at the same time. Can we stagger them?
Exactly.
And give people an opportunity.
That'd be smart.
to
I
see
mean,
all.
I mean, a lot of the times you kind of see for SIU softball and baseball, usually they aren't going on at the same time. Usually,
Right.
they might be playing at the same time, but it's usually one of the teams has already begun, whereas the other one they don't start usually at the same time. So it just would make sense and would follow SIU's logic for Charlotte West and Abe Martin Field to be doing that type of stuff. So hopefully that's what goes on here.
And you potentially there's some schools that maybe potentially playing in both. You mentioned Goreville being. And again, we have no idea at this point, but if they're both playing at the same time, then that doesn't, you're making people pick. And again, that's a good problem to have if your school gets there, but that's just one thing to think about. And don't schedule them at the same time.
Please.
So here, the two sectionals that go into the SIU Super and 1A are at Trico and at Casey Westfield. Regionals in the Trico are at Alvarado and Steelville, as well as Goreville and Century. And over in the Casey Westfield sectional, your regionals are Martinsville and Windsor Stew Strauss. And then you've got Wayne City and then Hudsonville Palestine are the two hosts there. And so, again, we see part of our teams being sent north and east.
Yep.
And then we have the bulk of them remaining in the same, and again, those end up at SIU. So let's see what 2A has to offer. Murfreesboro hosting a sectional, as is Vandalia. Feeding into Murfreesboro, we have regionals at Benton and Harrisburg in subsectional A, and Pinckneyville and Redbud in subsectional B. And so Again, we talked a lot about AJ and Carterville just a couple minutes ago. They're in the same subsectional.
Yeah.
And so that means that they're going to be in different regionals, and then they're going to play the crossover games in the sectional semis if they make it out of the regionals.
Yep.
And so they would not see each other until the sectional final if that were to come to fruition.
Right.
But I know when you look down there in the bottom part of the bracket, Pinckneyville's saying, not so fast. And again, we talked about it a lot in basketball. This is where seeding is going to be important.
It is, yes.
Because, you don't want to have to go through both Carterville and AJ or both Pinckneyville, whatever the mix is going to be. And again, that's nothing about the other teams, but those three teams are, top-notch teams that you expect to be there.
Yeah, exactly. And, I mean, it's a pretty good chance that one of those teams is going to have to run that gauntlet one way or another. Yeah. And so you basically are fighting to not be that team.
Right.
Well, I mean, technically it would be two teams. So you're trying to be the one that is kind of the odd man out, per se. And so, but that'll probably force you to be the top one in the region. And so, but it'll be a good race.
Well, and that throws another piece into this AJ Carterville game is, the winner more than likely is going to get the 1 seed. And if you're the 2 seed, you're going to have to likely play Pinckneyville, who would be the 1 seed.
Exactly.
So, again, we can look out far. That's coaches and we're not looking far.
Yeah,
we can do that.
Exactly.
That's part of it.
And I mean, the thing is that it is so far out in advance that something could happen for any of these teams.
Could change, yes.
That I mean, you could see a Carterville and AJ in the same regional final potentially, and someone that we aren't even talking about right now forcing their way in, and maybe a Pinckneyville or Carterville or AJ, really any combination of the three, but there could be a fourth one that sneaks in there, and then all of a sudden you've got a regional final for the 1 and the 4 seed that are sitting there saying, this wasn't supposed to happen.
Right, and you look at, Harrisburg's off to a great start this season. Hamilton County has had flashes. Mount Carmel has been very good here early in the season. So those are all teams that are in that same subsectional with AJ and Carterville. So it makes for some interesting discussions. Again, on April 4th, we're talking something that's 5-6 weeks away. So we're not counting chickens yet, but at the same point, it's okay to look ahead.
Yeah.
Vandalia sectional, the regionals are at Flora and Greenville, also at Columbia and Gillespie. So those feed into the Vandalia sectional, and again, those 2 sectionals will end up in the SIU super sectional, which is new this year. Past years, it's been at Johnston City. In 3A, in the Triad sectional, you've got regionals at Centralia and Mascoutah. And then in the other subsectionals, you have regionals at Marion and Salem. And so interesting to me the way they divided these teams up, Maddie. They put Centralia in subsectional A, but they put Salem and Mount Vernon in subsectional B. and so again, that's
very interesting.
Centralia is further west, so I guess that's why they end up doing that and keep it, whatever the dividing point is there. But again, that's so now Centralia is dealing with the Mississippi Valley schools in the Metro East, and then in the other subsectional, it's mainly the South 7 with Salem, Effingham, and Freeburg coming in there as well.
I guess it just feels like gerrymandering a little bit. It feels like somebody drew the maps and made sure to have maybe a little square for Centralia that was different color coded than the area. But I mean,
and that's no picnic. I mean, and that's neither side is a picnic. I mean that's the thing. But I think they tried to balance the numbers, and again, it's always interesting sport to sport to see how this shakes out.
It always is. But so Centralia have to go through that, but it does feel weird that they're not in that. But that means that we might have at Milliken potentially a full Deep South matchup, which would be pretty cool.
Girls track is also posted assignments in 1A. Weber is hosting a sectional, as is Chester. And then Newton has also got some teams from the region. So we've got 3 sectionals there. And then when you look at 2A, you are looking at Mascoutah is got almost all of the area teams. And again, 2A is such a span in the 3-class system.
Yep.
And so you're looking at AJ, DuQuoin, those schools are Pinckneyville, West Frankfort. They are also in the same sectional as Marion, Carbondale, Mascoutah, Mount Vernon. I mean, that is an enormous span of enrollment.
It is. I mean, when you look at three-class setup, it's usually small school, big to bigger school, and then its biggest school is 3A, and it's funny to look at it all. But you look at that and you'll think about other sports and say, man, what would this look like? But I think a lot of people are happy that it doesn't get used a lot. But for individual sports and track and field is a team sport, but also in that weird vein of also being an individual sport, it works well for the kind of individualized sports, but it still is such a weird setup.
It's a big span when you're talking about Mascoutah, a school of 1,300 in Pinckneyville, sitting there at in West Frankfort in the 400 neighborhood. Anyway, then again, that's a whole other track.
It is.
In 1A boys, we have Fairfield as a host, Altamont is a host, and then we have the ever popular TBA sectional.
Ah, yes.
That's going to have the schools in 1A from our location, north and west, Nashville, New Athens, Chester, those type of schools in that vicinity, Waterloo, Jabot, Althoff, they don't have a host yet.
Right.
And so that's a little scary, I would think. And and they're probably like, hey, we need somebody to step up. And, Chester's already hosting Chester's hosting a girls, and it will be interesting to see who decides to take that on. But that is the ever famous TBA sectional, having some of our schools in it. And in 2A we have Civic Memorial is hosting a sectional, as is Mascoutah. And so Mascoutah is the one that's got a predominant number of our area teams.
Yeah.
But again, when they're at Mascoutah and Civic Memorial, ain't nothing close for folks around here.
No, but that's how it just rolls out sometimes, and sometimes it goes our region's favor, and sometimes it goes theirs. You would like to see it split every single year, but that's not how the powers that be do it sometimes.
That is the case. And then in girls soccer, in 1A, Althoff is hosting the sectional. In the subsectional B, Murfreesboro is hosting one of the regionals. And again, the little red mark of we are still seeking a regional host for that subsectional. The other side, Bree Central and Father McGivney are your hosts there. And so we've talked a lot about, this area trying to get to that next level and being able to compete with the teams from the Metro East region. And so in the regional aspect of it, you've only got 2 squads from the Metro East in Columbia and Waterloo, Jabot, but those traditionally have been pretty good programs.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they were the favorites, but they could also get bunched up together, and that would probably be the best case scenario for a Southern Illinois team representing in the sectional. But, we've been seeing girls soccer improving since it ever came here, as we've talked in the past about. And just so they're not locks whenever the regionals come out, but they will absolutely be the favorites just because it's just a different world up there still.
And on the other side, again, another TBA sectional. And then those 2 sectionals, Althoff and TBA, would end up in the North Mac Super Sectional, which is up outside of the Springfield region. So. And then when you look at 2A, we're looking at Triads hosting the Super Sectional. And then in the Waterloo Sectional, we have Marion is hosting. And again, they are still seeking another regional host in that subsectional. And then the other sub has Civic Memorial and Mascoutah. The other side has the Pleasant Plains Sectional. Again, that will meet up in the Triad Super Sectional. And so AJ, Carbondale, Carterville, Heron, Freeburg, Harrisburg, Marion, Mount Vernon, and Waterloo are the ones in that subsectional, and so they're looking for one more to host there. And so
kind of weird that AJ Cobden, I mean, obviously with just the whole combining all the totals that they are going to get up there, but still feels weird for them to be in that 2A. Definitely feels like they are. I mean, they're a good program, don't get me wrong, but it feels like they are much more geared towards the 1A postseason, and they'd probably be doing pretty well in the postseason at 1A, but being in 2A, that's what happens when you co-op sometimes.
Well, and that's the discussion point, and that's the crux of or I won't say the crux. It is a major part of the argument in the private situation is that AJ Cobden, they co-op,
right,
and so AJ's got to take on all of Cobden's enrollment, but yet on the other side, schools can take kids from a larger radius, and they don't have to take on any of that enrollment.
Right.
And so, yes, there's a multiplier, and we talked about that a couple weeks ago, but not to belabor the point. But, again, it shows up in a situation like that where you've got a 3-class system, and A.J. Cobden, for all intents and purposes, you would think that would be a 1A type squad, but they're stuck in 2A because of the combined enrollment.
Well, and you look at what they do, especially this year right now. I mean, they're doing very well this year. I mean, I know they had at least one 9-0 victory. I think they've had a couple of big wins like that, but they're playing, and no knock on them, they're playing their schedule, but they're playing a mostly 1A schedule, and you just sit there and think, what if they were going to be there? But instead, they're in the 2A one, and they're going to have to do the best that they can. And I haven't looked at their schedule, I haven't looked at their roster per se, but I don't know if you broke them up, if they'd be able to field a team at either one. Probably not. But still, they probably have a couple 2A opponents coming up because they got to be prepared.
Right. Well, and they they're in the River to River is a single division conference in soccer, and so they've played Carterville Heron,
sure.
Which, I mean, good grief, that's that's essentially the same size as a Marion or Mount Vernon, and when you talk about combining enrollments, but again, this is the 3-class span that makes that 2A class such an enormous spread of enrollments.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but it is the way that it is, and so. They'll continue looking for solutions. That's all I can really say.
Yeah, and we'll continue to look for dry weather, so we can talk more about games and results and performances, and not have to worry about so much of the interior stuff that piles up. But again, it's not close necessarily. But when you think about it, the postseason is not that far away when they go ahead and post these assignments and locations.
Well, and one last thing that I wanted us to quickly touch on also, though, kind of a little out of our area, but Landon Zerlini going to be the new head coach at South Central in Farina.
Well, and that's my neck of the woods. That's, South Central, of course, was Kim Andiama and Farina LaGrove, and so congrats to Landon for getting the head coaching job, and I think he's going to be the middle school AD.
I think something like that, yeah.
He had a tremendous career at Fairfield and went to play at McKendree, where he's getting ready to graduate.
When I saw that news the other day, I was like, no, that's too soon. Like I could have sworn that he was just playing quarterback the other day. No, if time flies, and I mean, best of luck to him. That is when I came to River Radio, I was a 23-year-old kid, and I thought I was interviewing for a totally different position. Tom Miller didn't make it completely known to me, but then came in and got hired for the job, and program director at 23 is a pretty big deal. And so for him to be head boys basketball coach and a middle school AD coming out of, I'm sure it's daunting, but, just take it a day at a time, and I'm sure he'll be able to do a fantastic job.
Well, and I mean, he's in that situation where with Justin Townsend, being around the coaching aspect of it.
He knows what he's doing.
He was a quarterback. He was the leader on the basketball team. So certainly a guy that has been able to play with great skill and ability, but also understands the game, and that's a big thing.
And I mean, he's got a great support system in terms of people that he can turn to. I mean, obviously Dad, and then also he can turn to Scott McElravy, who's had a fantastic career as well. He's got a couple of coaches he can turn to, and I think he has some good coaches from McKendree also that can probably give him a few pointers as well. Yeah,
and South Central is one of those schools that's just kind of out of our immediate coverage. We include them in the region. And again, that's my neck of the woods, so I'm very familiar with that program. And I played for Gary Shirley, and Coach Shirley was there for many, many years, and he passed away a few years ago, and they've had some different several coaches in the meantime, and so Landon is the next guy to step in there, and so that is a school that has had a pretty good history, and that it's still going to be a big task for a guy in his first job.
Yeah.
But I think it is it's a good place to start, and I think the elements will be there for him to be successful.
Yeah, without a doubt. Like I said, he's got a good place to be at, and then he's got great people that he can just dial up on the phone. Not every first-time coach is going to have all those contacts. He's got a million of them, and then they've got a million of them that says, hey, I don't know, but let me give you the number of a guy that might be able to help. Not every first-time 22-year-old head coach is going to be able to have that type of stuff. He's set up for success, I think.
And I'm just going to give you a little warning, is that, if you feel old when you see something like that, wait till you start covering kids of kids that you've covered. And that's where I've been at for a few years, and you're just like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
Golly, I've done this a long time.
I didn't feel old. It just was like, no, that's too soon. There's no way that it's been that
I didn't mean to put words in your mouth,
I know. But it was one of those things where it's like, no, that's too soon. But it was, then my next thought was, oh, no, it's coming for me.
Oh, goodness. Well, before we feel too old, we're going to go ahead and call it a day here on the River Radio Sports Central podcast, powered by NovaCare Rehabilitation. Thanks so much for joining us. For Matty V, I'm Darren Kennard. Have a great weekend, everyone. Stay dry. Hopefully we get some games in next week. We'll talk to you again then.